My husband wanted to go on an all-male trip to Isa with my sister's husband. When I said no, my BlL, husband's brother-in-law, said all straight men do this and that we were homophobic for not understanding. Hi there, I really wish I didn't have to make this post, but here it goes. My husband and I have been happily married for about 16 years, give or take. We both have stable careers, a good family life, and are fairly fortunate, despite the high cost of living in the UK right now. We have 2 boys, aged 15 and 10, and up until this Sunday, I thought we had it pretty good. Life is sometimes tough, but it's never been too bad, and we have a pretty decent sex life with some exploration, but I won't get into that. Long story short, on Sunday, just after I dropped our boys off at their friend's house, my husband asked me if we had the house to ourselves and, more importantly, if I had a minute. I said yes, and he sat me down and pulled out a printed poster for some sort of orgy. He began explaining the concept of a gaycation, telling me it's where straight men go somewhere with sun, sand, and booze and become gay for the duration of the trip. But that's fine because it doesn't count, because, as he put it, what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. I was just completely silent and mortified, even more so when he said he was looking into booking a trip to Isa next year with his brother-in-law, my sister's husband, to experience it for himself. When he finally let me speak, I just asked him to be clear with me. Is he gay? If yes, that's okay, but we need to figure out what happens going forward. I didn't let myself get angry or upset. I was just stunned. He swore up and down that he's not gay, that he's 100% attracted to women, and of course, still loves me and our boys. So I asked, well, do you think you're bi, maybe? He got very defensive, saying I needed to drop the accusations and that this was the beauty of the gaycation. It allows straight men to experience gayness without actually being gay. He said it's like going to an aquarium. He was adamant that he doesn't find men's bodies or genitalia exciting at all, but he needs to experience this, apparently. I said, well, I'm really not comfortable because even if you were bi, this would be explicitly cheating on me. He got angry and reiterated that he isn't, because that's the beauty of the gaycation, etc. I just had enough and left the room. I ignored him for the rest of the day, but we spoke at dinner, where I again asked him why he wanted to do this so badly if he's not gay. He said he was interested in how gay men's lives differ from straight men's, and that once the gaycation begins, it's simply impossible for a man to resist. He said a man must surrender himself, mind, body, and soul, or be destroyed. I really can't put into words how surreal it was, because he was speaking so matter-of-factly. He again insisted that this is something straight men do all the time, and that he's actually doing it a bit late. I just told him that if he has any love for me, he can't go ahead with this. If he does, the marriage will be over. We didn't speak anymore after that. Since then, he hasn't mentioned it again, but somehow, and this is what scares me a lot, it genuinely seems to be tearing him up. He didn't go into work on Monday, and only went in for half a day yesterday because he told them he felt too ill. He just looks distraught every time I see him. I really don't think he's wholly gay, though I can absolutely believe he's bi. I'd rather we talk about that in a healthy way, rather than all this incredibly weird denial about going on a sex holiday to Isa. Has anyone known straight guys to do this, and then just go back to being straight? Surely that can't be a thing that happens. I'm so out of my depth here, and I don't even know how to initiate the conversation. For the record, I haven't mentioned it to his sister yet. I don't know how I'd even break it to her. Thanks for any help. Writing this out has helped me, even just a little. Edit. While this blew up, it's been incredibly sobering, and I think I've now confirmed what I already knew deep down. The marriage is dead, one way or another.
I was in denial about that.
I have contacted my sister-in-law, and she initially screamed at me, calling me a liar, and even insinuating I was trying to steal her husband. She rang me back shortly after, apologized, and admitted she was in deep shock. I have asked my parents to look after the boys, and we're going to meet tomorrow to discuss this deeper. I also texted my husband and told him he needs to make alternative accommodation arrangements. He will not be sleeping here tonight, and a bag will be waiting for him. I'm not sure if the mods want to lock the post or not, but I think I've got my answers. Thank you for all the kind words, especially Champion Flight, who really gave me the dose of reality I needed. So, when I last posted, I contacted my husband to tell him he wouldn't be staying at home tonight and a bag would be waiting for him. As you can imagine, we argued quite badly. I won't go into the specifics, but I'm now 100% certain that, at minimum, he's bi and might even be gay altogether. We've had arguments in the past, but I've genuinely never seen him have such a childish tantrum before, screaming about how I just don't understand the gaycation, absolutely despising that phrase now, and insinuating I'm actually homophobic because I refuse to allow him to participate in this cultural exchange with the gay community. A lot of you said to ask him if it'd be acceptable if the roles were reversed, so I did. I asked him, would it be acceptable if I went and slept with other guys during that week? Like clockwork, he was very angry and offended, saying it's completely different because a gaycation means nothing, and what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation, etc. So, it doesn't actually count, whereas I'd just be straight up cheating. Well, I turned it around on him. No, but you see, what happens in Manchester stays in Manchester. It doesn't mean anything. It's like bird watching. I think it got through to him. He went all quiet, then started crying, admitting that the thought of me sleeping with another man was destroying his heart. But relationships need sacrifices, so he agreed, while in tears, that when he goes on the gaycation, I'll get 1 week in Manchester to do whatever I want. He didn't want me to, but I think that's fair in a twisted way. He left without a fight when I told him to get out of my house. I know it's incredibly petty, but I also drained the joint bank account, legal in the UK, so he couldn't try to use it against me. About an hour later, I got a call from his mom, my MIL, who screamed at me about being a cheating expletive, how I was horrible, what about the kids, etc. When I finally got my composure back, I just said, ask your son about the gaycation. At first, she got angry, but I insisted, no, just ask him about the gaycation, he'll explain. She called me a expletive, a joke, and hung up. Later on, I got another phone call from her, this time in floods of tears. She was very apologetic. I told her she didn't need to apologize, and she was so upset that she put Phil on the phone. While he sounded calm, I could tell he was on the warpath again. He was very apologetic and said he overheard the phrase and asked my husband. My husband initially said, no, it's nothing, before explaining how it's a modern thing that men do, etc., and gave them the same spiel about how what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. Phil just told him to leave, or they'd call the police. They didn't care where he went, but he wasn't staying there. My husband tried to call me while I was on the phone, but I ignored it. Phil said he was so sorry for me and that they had my back in this, so that's one thing. He said they'd be there for their daughter, because it sounds like Bill is involved. Husband didn't tell them that, and Phil just said he had to go because he was so angry. I got a text from my husband after the phone call, which was all weirdly ramly, saying I'd abused the gaycation to destroy our marriage and life, and again insinuating I and his parents were homophobic for doing such a thing. I told him we'll talk when he grows up and blocked his number. I took a day off work to have the locks changed this morning, a £500 cost, but whatever. At least I know he won't be coming back. I'm going to look into how to proceed with the divorce, and then we'll move from there. Of course, there's also the brother-in-law. I haven't met with my sister-in-law yet. She was in such a state and has taken this far worse than I have, for reasons that will be clear soon. We're maybe going to try tomorrow, but we did talk over the phone. I even eavesdropped on the conversation with her husband where she put her phone on speaker and went on mute. Her husband got home earlier, and she made him come home, told him there was an emergency, and asked, "Can you please explain what a gaycation is?" She told me afterwards she was praying he'd look confused or just be like, "What?" or anything like that, but instead, he just sat her down and explained that a gaycation is a new thing where straight men go to gay hotspots and participate in gay sex acts, but it doesn't count because there's no emotional investment. What happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. He said it's like writing down angry thoughts and putting them in a drawer, never to see them again. The whole time, my sister-in-law was in tears as he calmly bathed off the same points my husband made about how it doesn't count. He even did the whole, "It's impossible to resist, you must surrender or be destroyed." I seriously think they must be speaking to a dominatrix or something. Are there even male doms? because surely neither of them could be making this up on their own. I really don't want to go into what was discussed for her sake, but it did become very apparent to me that Bill is into ___ hypnoporn and at times conflated that with the concept of a gaycation. There was this utterly surreal moment where she's trying to wrap her head around this while also in floods of tears, and he explains so genuinely, so matter-of-factly, that for most men, the gaycation is either a one-time or annual thing, but some men go on gaycations for years and others never return because they use it to hypnotize and feminize themselves into a permanent pseudo-gay state. She said in disbelief, "Surely if you're taking it up the _ willingly because you want to, that makes you gay?" He said, "No, because that's the beauty of the gaycation. You can do all this gay stuff, but you don't have to interact with the wider gay life experience." She asked him if the stuff is what he wanted, and he said, not on a long-term basis, but was adamant this is something all straight men do, but she wouldn't understand because she's a woman. Then there were more insinuations of homophobia. Well, that marriage is dead, too. I suppose the whole ordeal ended when she said to him, "You have a choice to make," and he said, "No, I don't need to make this choice because the beauty of the gaycation is that it allows me to keep my marriage because it doesn't count." She said, "That's not the choice. The choice is whether you're leaving the house tonight or I am." The only good thing he did was leave, and my sister-in-law and I spoke about it afterward. I'm still utterly stunned. I understand she's gone to her parents for support. What exactly did we do to have our lives destroyed in such an abrupt, bizarre, embarrassing way? For some advice, I'm going to look at devices and bank statements to see if I can find any definitive proof of cheating. After that, I suppose I'll figure out how to tell the boys why their father won't be coming home.